today from San Francisco, California, a little bit north up the Pacific coast. And I'd like to tell you a story about the city I live in and the people who live there, because I think that there are people like this here in Santiago and wherever you live. So you may have heard of San Francisco. Some of you may have visited. You probably know it for the Golden Gate Bridge, for cable cars, perhaps for Silicon Valley, which is right down the road. And we used to be known for hippies and being the city of love. But we're also a city of neighborhoods. And one of these neighborhoods is located right in the middle of the city, and it's called the Tenderloin. And like neighborhoods in many cities, it's a city with a great number of families, many, many children, all kinds of people. In fact, this is a neighborhood where people, when they first come to San Francisco, might be likely to move. It's a neighborhood of immigrants. It's not a neighborhood of great financial wealth, but it's a neighborhood of great human wealth. And the people who live there care deeply about their place, but they also struggle with many of the same issues that other neighborhoods in other cities have to face. There's great poverty, there's some gangs, there's way too many guns, and there's way too much violence. But it's home, and so people take care of it. Particularly, the people who care about their neighborhood are the moms fighting for their kids. Like moms anywhere and everywhere, and dads too. We will protect our children. And so, in the neighborhood of the Tenderloin in San Francisco, California, the question was, how can we, the parents, help get our children safely to and from school without them being a victim of violence? And the moms worked this out over many years. Some of the braver moms and dads and volunteers in the neighborhood took to the streets. They talked to the gang leaders. They talked to the drug dealers. They talked to the people with guns. And they said, these are our children. We need a way for them to get from school to home and back again. We need for there to be just 2 hours a day when you take your business elsewhere, where we can make this place safe. We want a safe passage from home to school and back again. And they worked it out, using cell phones to organize and being in touch with the people with the guns, the people with the drug dealers. They managed to negotiate a way for the streets to be safe for just the 2 hours of the day when the kids were going to school and when the kids were coming back. And the drug dealers would take their business elsewhere, and the people with guns would not use them on that safe passage. An amazing change happened in this neighborhood. Now, it's still not perfect. There's a lot of work to do. But for the most part, during those 2 hours, when the street is lined with volunteers and the shopkeepers come out to help keep the passage safe, and they call for the children to come, the violence and the danger goes down. Now, when they started this process, they were also using their cell phones to be in touch with the drug dealers. They were using their cell phones to organize the volunteers. They even, because so many phones have cameras in it, sometimes the people took pictures of what was happening. And this afforded them an awful lot of digital data about what was going on. And then they realized just how dangerous that was. Because while they were out there physically making the streets safe for the children, and I should say that once this started working, it also was a very good way to help seniors and the elderly in the neighborhood get from place to place safely. But while they were helping people get to place safely physically, what they had started to collect on their cell phones was an enormous amount of digital data that was very dangerous. Who would want to have a cell phone that had the number of your children, the number of your friends and fellow volunteers, and the numbers of drug dealers all on the same cell phone. Imagine if someone got a hold of that cell phone, either the drug dealers or the police. That's very dangerous. And as they had been taking photographs of what was going on when they were out there, whether it was trash in the streets or violence in a car or something happening that shouldn't be happening, they realized that those photographs, while useful, were also dangerous because they didn't know who they were taking pictures of. So they had figured out a way to live in digital civil society. They had to figure out a way to do what every person in this room probably does. If you're active in your community, if you work at a not-for-profit, if you're involved in politics, which is to function as an active citizen in the digital age, to be able to use digital data safely, ethically, and effectively. Because we collect this data all the time. We generate it, we collect it, and we transmit it every time you put that cell phone in your pocket. So what the moms did, and the volunteers, and the shopkeepers, is they stopped using their cell phones to collect the data. For a while, they used walkie-talkies, but then they discovered that they could just use good old pencil and paper. And they could use flags, and they could use those vests that you saw in the picture. And they could communicate like that when they were out on the street. And if they had to collect information about where the violence was happening, or whether there was a street light out, or there was trash in the street, they could do that on paper. And what they did with that paper at the end of every volunteer shift was they went back to the place where they gathered, and they took that information and they used it as an educational tool for the very same moms. And they taught them how to create spreadsheets. And they taught them how to bring together observational data about the status of their neighborhood. And they taught them how to visualize that data and how to use it to advocate to our city government to make changes in the neighborhood. So they were able to continue to keep the children safe and advocate for their community without having digital data that would put people in danger. And this is the world that all of us live in. It's an age in which we try to take action and take advantage of our digital tools, but we have to learn how to do it safely. Because in the digital age, we have the opportunity for what I call the new social calculus, where we take one action and we get two benefits. For the moms, the one action was being able to take the kids safely to and from school, and the secondary benefit was being able to use the data to advocate to the city. When you collect data on your phone, be it a photograph, or you keep track of the numbers of people you serve, or you help people, you provide counseling over cell phones, you will automatically alloy your service provision to your data collection. You can take one action and get two benefits, but it's not arithmetic. This is not a case of 1 + 1 = 2. Because if you don't take care of that data, if you don't find a way to keep it safe, if you don't find a way to get permission, if you don't find a way to destroy that data, you may well be putting people in danger. And this is the challenge that all of us face. So it would be helpful if we understood a little bit better just how digital data works. So here's something to think about. H2O, water, is H2O, whether it's in liquid form, as it is in this glass, whether it's frozen like an ice cube, or whether it's steam, right? It is still H2O. The information is the same, the format matters. When H2O is in liquid form, I can hold it very nicely in this glass. It's the perfect container for the resource I'm trying to manage. But digitized data, such as that which is collected on our cell phones, is not liquid. It's much more like steam. And this glass doesn't hold steam very well and doesn't put it to work very well. We need to reinvent the glass. Civil society in 2018 needs to reinvent the glass. But there's something else about the digital data that each of us needs to understand, and it's very simple. If you think about the cell phone in your pocket and the digitized data, the steam that is going from one place to another, it is going across the air and through the internet and through the Wi-Fi over a set of systems that are built by the businesses that sold you your phone, the companies that made the apps you use, and the entire infrastructure is surveilled by governments. This we know. The government of the United States of America, if not also the government of Chile. Now, this is a problem for us in civil society. The fact that we are digitally dependent upon devices that are made by companies and monitored by governments, and I'll explain why. Because democracy has counted on, here in Chile, in the US, and around the world, for hundreds of years, a third space, an independent space, we call it civil society, that is separate from the marketplace and the government. But in an age when our digital infrastructure and our digital data are mostly provided by marketplace companies and surveilled by governments, well, then we have lost that independence. And so we must take it back. We must take it back in order for us to have a private place for each of us in our homes to determine that we want to voluntarily participate, to do something to change the world. And here's how we can do that. There are 4 things that those of you who run not-for-profit organizations, those of you who volunteer your time, those of you who are active in politics, each of us can think about how we do this at our own organizations or in our own lives, about our digital data. There are 4 principles. First of all, we must respect digital data as it belongs to the person who generates it. It is yours. It is mine. And before we ask for it from civil society, we must ask permission. That is the only way it will be a voluntary relationship. We must keep it private. We must do everything we can to protect it. It belongs to the person from whom it came. I often say to non-for-profit leaders, don't collect what you can't protect. And so we must find new ways, just as the moms in the Tenderloin did, to answer the questions you want to answer. We must be willing to share what we learn to solve these difficult problems. And so while we ask for permission and we protect the ownership and the privacy of that data, we also can find ways to use it to make change. Again, just as the moms in the Tenderloin do. And finally, the 4th principle, whether, again, you work for a not-for-profit or you volunteer your time, is pluralism. Our voices must be heard in how these data are used. And we, the organizations who collect it, must include the people from whom the data comes. This is the beginning of the type of change that all of us can participate in, that all of us can use to make our neighborhoods safer, that all of us can use to make civil society thrive in the digital age, and that all of us can do to make democracy thrive in the 21st century. Thank you very much.